Good afternoon and welcome back. You're watching Business Arena here on TVP World. I'm Aleksandra Marchewicz and these are the latest business headlines. A bureaucratic cleanup with a promise to help businesses meet their environmental requirements sits at the center of an ambitious new economic strategy released today by the European Commission. Now, the Competitiveness Compass covers a 5-year period and aims to strengthen the EU's economy. But many are wondering whether it is harmonious with the continent's environmental ambitions. EU correspondent Angela Skujins has this report from the Belgian capital.
The European Commission handed down its Competitiveness Compass today in Brussels. This is a document charting the EU over the next 5 years out of the sluggish economic situation it seems to have found itself in and into prosperity. It comes off the back of Mario Draghi, this is the former president of the European Central Bank, releasing a scathing assessment at the end of last year saying the EU needed urgent support. Now, the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen had this to say at a press conference following the release of that strategy.
The Competitiveness Compass focuses on 3 pillars. The first one is closing the innovation gap. The second is a joint roadmap for decarbonization and competitiveness. And the third one is reducing our dependencies and increasing our resilience and our economic security. And then these are the 3 pillars. They are horizontal, cross-cutting enablers that are very important for our competitiveness.
Now, the strategy is split into 3 pillars. This includes investment, innovation and decarbonisation. Decarbonisation now will be intrinsically linked to getting the EU off its dependencies from some of those other international players. But environmental groups are already concerned that this competitiveness compass will water down some of the EU's environmental goals, such as getting carbon neutral by 2050, but the devil is in the detail, and we'll report back to you when we have heard from other interest groups about how this strategy is expected to take shape. My name is Angela Skujins and I'm reporting from Brussels for TVP World.
Polish energy giant Orlen is pressing ahead with its offshore wind projects on the Baltic Sea. The latest step in the process is the creation of the necessary onshore infrastructure at Świnoujście, one of the biggest ports in Poland.
This is the former site of the Świnoujście shipyard. It'll now be home to the new offshore wind terminal of Polish energy giant Orlen's flagship wind energy project, Orlen Neptune.
The offshore wind farm installation terminal is the first of its kind on the Polish coast. It is part of Orlen's strategy to build offshore wind farms. It is a strategic investment that secures our supply chain when it comes to the construction of these farms.
The initial price tag of the investment is about 105 million euro. Orlen Neptune put up about 43 million, while the remaining 62 million was covered by the Szczecin and Świnoujście Seaports Authority.
This is a really large deep water quay with a high load capacity of 50 tons per square meter and point pressures that allow the application of 80 tons per square meter. It even allows for the unloading of transformer stations, which weigh up to 24,000 tons each. They can be unloaded and controlled from here.
Once the approximately 100 workers arrive, the new site will serve as Orlen Neptune's main logistical hub for all projects connected to the second phase of its offshore wind energy program. This phase includes the completion of 3 of 5 projects by 2035. All 5 projects are expected to be finalized by 2040, providing a total capacity of 5.2 gigawatts. As Orlen Neptune's management stresses, the advantage of the Świnoujście installation terminal is its location. It'll serve the 2 projects that are currently on the cards to the east towards Gdańsk. But it'll also serve the implementation of offshore wind energy for clients from neighboring countries like Germany, Sweden, and Denmark. The European Commission estimates that offshore wind potential in the Baltic Sea region could reach 93 gigawatts by 2050.
Europe has the money, but most of it is sitting in bank accounts doing nothing. Experts from around Europe descending upon Warsaw on Wednesday to discuss what can be done to improve the continent's capital markets. And now our very own Mary Cato was at the Warsaw Stock Exchange to get us insight.
The Warsaw Stock Exchange is hosting the European Capital Markets Forum today. Financial leaders from around Europe have come together to discuss how to make the 33.5 trillion euros work for Europe. This money is double the EU collective GDP, and this money is essentially lying around doing nothing in the banks. The first keynote speech was delivered by Poland's Finance Minister Andrzej Domański, and he emphasized that one of the main problems is fragmentation.
The money is there. Our savings amount to close to 1.4 trillion euros. But European companies still have problems using these funds and getting the financial need because our domestic capital markets are so fragmented.
Poland's Finance Minister Andrzej Domański highlighted that Poland's capital markets are the most developed in the Central and Eastern European region. Nonetheless, he emphasized that Poland needs to stay focused on developing its capital markets, remembering its priorities: AI, defense, energy, and green transformation. You'll find out more about Poland's capital markets and capital markets in Europe during my conversation on The Bottom Line, so stay tuned for that. But for now, from the Warsaw Stock Exchange for TVP World, I'm Marie Cato.
Russia's oil export capabilities have been hindered as countries are increasingly reluctant to do businesses with Russia's shadow fleet for fear of violating sanctions. The full impact will become clearer when the restrictions come into full force.
This fleet of shadow tankers has been a key means of exporting Russian crude. Employed by the Kremlin, they are often registered in exotic countries under flags of convenience to cut costs and help evade sanctions. However, the latest sanctions package has caused some to rethink this strategy.
I think we're seeing this message being received and leading in some actors, including flag states, reducing their exposure to this risk because, various countries have now sanctioned shadow tankers.
By the end of the month, Panama will remove 68 ships from its flag due to blacklistings by the US, EU, UK and G7. Barbados will do the same with 46 vessels sanctioned by the UK and US. And while some of these ships have already been re-registered to other less reputable flags of convenience, this only makes them more vulnerable to being blacklisted.
So the more the shadow fleet operation is pushed into this gray zone when it comes to the regulatory framework of global shipping, the likelier it is that these ships will face sanctions.
And because they are now under greater scrutiny, some Chinese as well as Indian companies are avoiding business with the vessels, fearing being accused of breaching sanctions.
Many shadow tankers that especially operate in Pacific region, they actually right now cannot enter a port because they do not know what to do at the point, and Chinese refineries and Chinese ports as well avoid to take these tankers into the port.
Whether this mechanism proves effective and significantly dents Moscow's war-financing oil revenue remains to be seen. The true impact will become clearer in March, once the grace period for the energy sector to comply with orders expires.
And that is all for our business news updates today. But for more business stories, check out tvpworld.com.